And it's day 2 since some buildings were destroyed in Balogun Market in Lagos, leading to its collapse and destruction of properties. Emergency responders were seen working to clear the rubble so as to put out the fire within. It is said that the properties worth millions of naira was lost to the INFERNO, which claimed one person and left others injured. Safety and environmental consultant Ayodeji Aluko is here with me in the studio to discuss this. Many thanks to you, Ayodeji Aluko, for joining us on this hour.
Thank you for having me.
We've seen a lot of fire incidents in marketplaces recently. In just the space of 1 week, we saw one in ANAMBRA State, one in Ogun State, the Sabo Market in Ogun State, 2 here in Lagos, Amu Plank Market, and then Balogun Market. What would you say is responsible for this?
Well, it's a combination of factors, really. You know, without actually having, we don't know the source of the fire. It's not been reported, but a lot of practices and things that, you know, one, the weather is quite dry. Take, for instance, the Amu Market is a wood market, and they've got a lot of wood chips, wood chippings on the floor, sawdust and stuff. So these are very dry and, you know, ideal tinder for, you know, kindling fire. And with the woods all dry, it's going to, you know, spread fast. The practice of also leaving those things, the housekeeping practice, is a factor also. However, you'd consider the fact that we want NEPA, the distribution, power distributions to actually work effectively. And the minute they start giving you light and you don't have good electrical wiring systems, then you have them melting overnight or even during the day. The Balogun one actually happened during the day. So that it's not like there's an arsonist going around putting fire in this, because some people might mute it, you know, that's the case. But when these kind of things happen, all the factors that would enhance the spread and effective burning of these materials are all in place.
Which is the weather?
No, the weather, the practice, the housekeeping of these people, and even the checking of electrical wiring systems. The buildings are quite old or stuff like that, and basically you have such failings, especially when there's a power surge.
All right, so what is the long-term impact of this INFERNO on the environment?
Well, one can't really say the amount of CO2 that has gone into the atmosphere would at this moment impact the ozone layer to, you know, cause greenhouse effect. But one of the problems we have is the continual, look, there are other bushfires that, you know, sending out, you know, soot and CO2 into the, but this is a localized, contained system situation. In Australia, they had you know, an extensive burn of the forest. That's quite large. That's a large sum of, you know, gases going into the atmosphere. But in this case, it's not much. You know, it's not as much as what some of the factories would, you know, put out into the atmosphere. But of course, if you continually have this kind of fires going up, yeah,
which
it will
we
contribute.
have, because if you remember, we've had one we had the Abule Agba gas explosion. We have the Amu Market. There was another gas explosion somewhere in Lagos. I can't remember.
Pipeline gas explosion.
So
yeah,
somewhere.
so
that's a lot of fire in different places. So when you put all of these fires together, just in Lagos alone, so doesn't that have a long-term impact?
Well, a cumulative impact actually, but you know, it's not something you can say, oh, this fire must have pumped this amount. I can't really say how much soot was pushed out there, but yes, it does have its long-term impact. Any fire, any release of CO2 or gases into the atmosphere would surely affect the ozone layer one way or the other, but it has a cumulative effect. But when we reduce the potentials of actually having that risk of a fire coming out, yes, it is. But you must understand, even the fact that we use generators everywhere in Nigeria has a cumulative impact. And that's a daily occurrence compared to...
All right. And I want to also, because you mentioned something about the weather earlier. I mean, the weather is tinder dry. This is the Harmattan and or the dry season. What should be the practice in this period? Because a lot of people wait for this period to burn things. And then you see that those fires spread. So what should be the practice this period, safety practice when it comes to setting fire in places?
Well, this should be put in perspective, really. You know, it's not about whether the weather is dry. If during the wet season, your electrical circuit and wiring catches, you know, ignite, and your building will burn down. It's still the same situation. Yes, the humidity in the atmosphere might slow down and dampen the fire. However, the practice itself should first come with how your safety practice is within that vicinity. If you look at the Amu market, as I said, the woods are tinder dry, so it's going to catch faster. So take, for instance, a practice was they wet in the morning and they wet in the evening. You know, those sawdust, it could have reduced and slowed down the fire.
I wish we could continue, but that's too much you can take. Environmental consultant Ayodeji Aluko, many thanks for your insights on this.